Failed former President Donald Trump was just eviscerated by two of my favorite politicians. Senator Bernie Sanders and President Joe Biden himself combined forces to rip Donald Trump apart for this video of him talking about tax cuts to his billionaire donors when Donald Trump thought the cameras were not rolling. Remember, his tax plan is coming in just 2 weeks, along with this healthcare plan that's coming in just 2 weeks, meaning they're not coming at all. He has nothing planned, but play this clip.
You all people that have a lot of money. I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts. We're going to pay off our debt.
You know, that's everything you need to know about Donald Trump. When he thinks the cameras aren't on, he tells his rich friends, quote, we're going to give you tax cuts.
Can anybody in America imagine that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, billionaires are doing phenomenally well, that he's going to give them huge tax breaks? And then at the same time, he's going to cut Social Security and Medicare and programs that our kids need.
This is his economic plan? That's what he wants to do? Cutting taxes for his friends? Cutting Social Security for you? That makes me mad as hell, quite frankly.
The hypocrisy is just outrageous. This is what he says to his billionaire friends, not quite what he's saying at his rallies.
There are 1,000 billionaires in America, in this country. They pay an average tax rate of 8.2% federal taxes. So I have a plan, we have a plan, asking his good buddies to begin to pay their fair share.
You have one candidate who wants to cut Medicare and Social Security and one who's going to protect it. That's why I'm supporting Joe, and I hope you will as well.
Thanks, pal.
I personally love the dynamic between Senator Sanders and President Biden. I think more of Biden's ads should feature this dynamic duo just ripping into MAGA. If you agree, leave a like and comment a blue heart. But let's dig into this further. Jared Ryan Sears tweeted, Republicans want to cut Social Security benefits and raise the retirement age. This is verifiably true. They also want to gut Medicare and privatize it. Also true. And they want to make Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy permanent. The same tax cuts that played a large role in Trump increasing the national debt by 40% in a single term. This is something that Republicans love to conveniently leave out when they're trying to hype up Trump's economy. They even want to give more tax loopholes for corporations and slash the IRS to help tax cheats. That only scratches the surface of what they want to slash within our government. Republicans don't care about the debt or about you. They care about handouts for their wealthy and corporate donors. Republicans still seem to be attached and obsessed with this model of trickle-down economics that basically says if you can make the rich even more rich, then that money will trickle down to people who are struggling. But this is not how it works. It's been debunked many times and only works to increase the wealth gap. But I guess Republicans don't really care as long as their rich donors are getting more rich. I think one of the best economic models that we could try to recreate is that of the Nordic countries, where they essentially promote free markets and competition and innovation, and they have strong capitalist systems, but at the same time, the rich and the middle class are taxed so that nobody goes without health care. Nobody goes without a home or a food. These basic necessities will be covered. This is not what socialism is. This is not what communism is. This is a free market capitalist economy with strong social safety nets. And I think that's what Bernie Sanders wants as well. I'm sure President Biden wants that as well. He always tweets out, I am a capitalist, but the rich need to pay their fair share. I always laugh when people call Joe Biden a liberal communist, because Biden is the farthest thing from a communist, and most liberals are not communists. Plus, Biden is way better at the game of capitalism than Donald Trump. Let's look at this chart of private business establishments created net of closures during the first 7 quarters of each president. Biden absolutely washes Trump. It's 3 times higher under Biden than under Trump. Let's also look at the CNBC article from yesterday where Biden says the US economy is the world's best. Trump calls it a cesspool. Trump is routinely depicting the US economy as a commercial wasteland. And now when I talk to some of his voters at these rallies, they think we're on the verge of like the worst recession since the 1930s, when that could not be farther from the truth. CNBC says, by the numbers, Biden is correct. America's economy is stronger than that of other developed nations. The article says, President Biden is fighting to convince inflation-wary voters that the U.S. economy is healthy. America has the best economy in the world, Biden told NBC. America's economic standing in the world is becoming an early flashpoint on the campaign trail, where former Donald Trump routinely depicts the United States as a commercial wasteland. We are a nation whose economy is collapsing into a cesspool of ruin, whose supply chain is broken, whose stores are not stocked, whose deliveries are not coming, Trump shouted at a Georgia rally last month that I was actually at. But the numbers paint a different picture, one more in line with Biden's narrative of economic dominance than Trump's apocalyptic warnings. Inflation has fallen sharply from its peak in 2022, and we've seen consumer sentiment only get better and better over the past few months. Hopefully that trend continues as we get closer to Election Day. Meanwhile, the U.S. gross domestic product, the GDP, grew 2.5% in 2023, significantly outpacing that of other developed economies, according to a January report from the IMF. The IMF projected that the U.S. will hold that lead in 2024, though it expects the rate to come down to 2.1%. Two other large advanced economies, Canada and Germany, lagged with the 2023 GDP growth at 1.1% and negative 0.3%. Respectively. Even when inflation was raging, the US had the lowest inflation in the world, which is a feat to be proud of. So while we can admit that inflation does suck for everybody, even sometimes I'm surprised when I'm checking out at the grocery store by how expensive things have gotten, that doesn't paint the full picture. We can't let MAGA gaslight us into thinking we're on the verge of a recession or that we're living in an economic wasteland, a cesspool, because that could not be farther from the truth. The US economy is actually very strong, and what matters more than inflation is whether or not wage growth is outpacing inflation. And it is. It absolutely is. People's wages are outpacing inflation, but what people want is to see prices go back down, and that is called deflation, and that would be terrible for the economy. So most people who don't really know much about economics are expecting the prices to go back down at some point, but that will never happen. Deflation is something that is so terrible that we are trying to avoid that. So hopefully that helps you paint a broader picture. We can admit that yes, inflation sucks, but we can also admit that the U.S. economy is doing great. Consumer sentiment is rising while wage growth is outpacing inflation. Sometimes I do get the feeling that the Biden campaign misfired with the term Bidenomics by trying to push it about 2 to 3 months before they should have, because when they started to push it, we got some bad economic news about inflation. Now consumer sentiment is finally on the rise and they've kind of abandoned Bidenomics. I think it's a great term. I think it could have worked, but I think they misfired on their timing slightly. And actually, as I was recording this video, I got a notification on my phone from friend of the show, Occupy Democrats, who tweeted out breaking. President Biden scores a massive victory as the March jobs report blows past expectations with 303,000 jobs added to the economy and unemployment plummeting to 3.8%. Bidenomics is undeniable at this point, and it gets even better. Experts had predicted that March would see the addition of a far more modest 205,000 job gains, but as it turns out, the labor market under Biden is stronger than ever. America has now had 26 straight months of unemployment under 4%. On top of that, President Biden has added a staggering 15 million jobs since taking office. The numbers don't lie. We are thriving under Biden's leadership. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wants to get back into the White House to hand out massive tax cuts to the rich and big corporations, even though trickle-down economics has been debunked time and time again. We have successfully looped back to the beginning of the video where Biden and Bernie were talking about Trump's leaked clip. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, comment a blue heart so I know to keep making these, and most importantly, have a great day.